What if I told you the biggest wealth transfer in human history is happening right now, and 99% of people are looking completely the wrong way? While everyone is obsessing over daily price charts and social media hype, an invisible financial network is being built by the world's most powerful banks, and one single crypto asset is standing right at the center of it. By the end of this video, you're going to see exactly why the old financial system is quietly dying and the massive move you need to make before the final switch is flipped. Imagine waking up, reaching for your phone, and seeing Bitcoin sitting at over $117,000, Ethereum above $4,600, and XRP holding strong at $38. Every news outlet is talking about it. Every chart is green. The market is overflowing with billions of dollars in daily movement. And this time, it's not just random excitement. This is the moment when institutions, governments, and state funds are finally stepping into crypto like never before. You're not watching this from the sidelines anymore. You're part of it. You're swimming in the wave itself. Because this isn't just another bull run. It's the global shift of capital, the kind that only happens once in a generation. And right in the center of all of it is XRP. Ripple is now pushing for a full US banking license, something no other crypto company has pulled off. That includes the legendary FedMaster account, the golden key that connects directly to the Federal Reserve itself. Brad Garlinghouse made it clear Ripple isn't dodging regulations. They're embracing them. They're bridging the old world of traditional banking with the new world of decentralized finance. That means XRP is now positioned to handle instant, low-cost, and secure transactions for banks, businesses, and even entire nations. That's what makes this moment different. The rule book has changed, and the ones who understand that, who prepare while the rest of the world watches, are the ones who win. Now, let's go deeper, because Ripple's not just chasing headlines. They're building the foundation of the new financial era. Once Ripple secures that banking license, they'll be on the same playing field as major US banks. That means they could create products, manage liquidity, and even transact directly with the Fed, all powered by XRP. Add in Ripple's partnerships with BNY Mellon, Franklin Templeton, and DBS, and you start to see it. A brand new financial network forming in real time right in front of our eyes. This is where traditional money and digital assets finally become one system. And the timing couldn't be more perfect, because just as this infrastructure comes online, the first US spot XRP ETF has officially launched. The RexShares Osprey product hit the market with massive demand. Over $24 million traded in the first 90 minutes and more than $37 million by the end of day one. That's more than every other ETF launch this year combined. Even analysts at Bloomberg called it the breakout of the year. XRP is no longer an outsider. It's now an institutional-grade asset, and this is just the start. At the same time, Coinbase just dropped one of the biggest updates in crypto history: direct DeFi lending integration inside their main app. No complicated wallets, no third-party connections, just hold USDC and instantly earn up to 10.8% APY. Let that sink in. While most banks offer 0.5% to 1% on your savings and maybe 4% on a money market account, Coinbase is now giving everyday users double-digit returns instantly. If you hold $10,000 in stable coins, that's over $1,000 a year just for holding digital dollars. You can probably guess how banks feel about that. They're not happy. The Institute of Banking Policy has already admitted that stablecoin yields are putting pressure on traditional banking models. And it makes sense. Why would anyone settle for pennies of interest when they can earn 10% and still use their digital dollars for payments, transfers, or even debit cards? This is why the financial structure is shifting in real time. Crypto isn't an experiment anymore. It's an upgrade. Now, zoom out for a second. Ripple has one foot inside the Federal Reserve System. Coinbase is giving savers real yield, and the first XRP ETF is setting trading records. On top of that, BlackRock's KKK's Larry Frank, the same man who manages over $10 trillion in assets, just said Bitcoin could reach between $500,000 and $700,000 if only 25% of global state funds allocate into crypto. He also confirmed he's already in talks with sovereign wealth funds about it. And it's not just talk. In Michigan, a new bill just passed that requires the state to allocate 10% of its reserve funds into Bitcoin. State adoption isn't coming. It's here. And once one state moves, others will follow. Now put all that together. Bitcoin ETFs are pulling in hundreds of millions a week. Ethereum ETFs are next in line. And now XRP, the utility coin with actual global banking use cases, is stepping into the same spotlight. Institutional money is pouring in. In the first week alone, Coinbase's ETF fund brought in $543 million. Ethereum's version, another $326 million, and now XRP is climbing fast with tens of millions in inflows since launch. This is how markets transform. It starts quietly, then accelerates all at once. And yes, here's something fascinating. Traders have noticed XRP often reacts to moon cycles. Sounds crazy, but historically prices rise during full moons and consolidate during new moons. And guess what? We're in the full moon phase right now, and XRP is surging. Even if that's just coincidence, experienced investors are watching these patterns closely because they align with money flow cycles. But while traders look at the charts, Ripple's is building deeper foundations behind the scenes. New stablecoin infrastructure, crosser payment corridors, and tokenized funds are being quietly built. This is how XRP gets embedded into the core of global finance. It's not just another crypto project anymore. It's becoming the plumbing for the world's next payment system. Right now, XRP is connecting everything from Wall Street to Washington to decentralized apps that run on the XRP ledger. We're seeing institutional adoption, ETF capital inflows, and regulatory clarity all lining up at once. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. These forces are aligning for the next major phase of capital growth. But here's where things get even more interesting. XRP doesn't trade like other assets because it's not just about speculation. It's strategic. Every price surge, every correction, every phase of consolidation has a purpose. There is an invisible rhythm to it. The long-term players, the institutions, funds, and global entities use these cycles to quietly accumulate while the public panics or hesitates. It's a pattern older than crypto itself. Smart money builds while the crowd doubts. Then, when the infrastructure and regulatory clarity are finally locked in place, those same entities go public and prices explode. That's exactly where we are now, the quiet phase before the storm. Because while most retail investors are still second-guessing XRP, banks, governments, and funds are already integrating it, the bridge between traditional finance and digital value transfer isn't a dream anymore. It's here, and it's called Ripplet. And once the banking license goes through, Ripple will officially be part of the US financial system, plugged into the Fed itself. And that's where we'll pick up in the next section. How Ripple's strategy, the ETF inflows, and the institutional setups are creating the perfect storm for XRP's next evolution. Now, let's zoom in on something most people miss when they look at XRP. What Ripple is actually building behind the scenes. Everyone focuses on the token price, but the real story is what's happening underneath. The infrastructure that could quietly become the backbone of the next financial system. For decades, the global banking system has run on messaging, not movement. Think of SWFT as like sending a fax. A bank sends a message that says, "Hey, we owe you this much." And the receiving bank waits for settlement that can take days. It's slow, inefficient, and costs a fortune in trapped liquidity. Ripple flips that entire system on its head. Instead of sending messages about money, they send actual value instantly. That's the big difference. And XRP is the key that makes that possible. It's not just another coin sitting on a blockchain, it's the bridge asset that connects two completely different currencies, no matter where in the world they are. A bank in Japan can send yen, and a bank in Brazil can receive res. And XRP handles the conversion in seconds. It's global, liquid, and lightning fast. But here's what's crazy. Only a handful of people understand that the real transformation is already happening quietly. Ripple has deals with hundreds of institutions across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. They've built this massive network that's growing under the surface. While most of the world's attention is still glued to Bitcoin, ETFs, and meme coins, and that's where the asymmetric opportunity lies. Because when systems like this start to replace old ones, the shift doesn't happen gradually. It snaps. Like how people went from DVDs to streaming overnight, or from taxis to Uber. One day, the new system just becomes the default, and the old one looks ancient. Now, Ripple's strategy isn't to fight the banks, it's to upgrade them. Instead of building an entirely separate financial system like Bitcoin wanted to, Ripple is building bridges between the old and the new. That's why banks actually work with them, not against them. That's why the IMF, the BIS, and even central banks pay attention when Ripple speaks, because they're not trying to destroy the system. They're trying to make it better. And here's something even bigger. We're moving into the era of tokenization. Every asset you can think of, stocks, bonds, real estate, carbon credits, will exist digitally on blockchain rails. That market is expected to reach over $16 trillion by 2030. And guess who's already setting the foundation for it? Ripple. They've already built Ripplet, which handles payments. Then they expanded to Ripple Liquidity Hub, which connects multiple sources of digital liquidity for businesses. And now they're pushing deeper into Ripple's CBDC platform, which allows entire governments to issue their own digital currencies on a blockchain. And you know what ties all of that together? Interoperability. The ability to move value between all those systems seamlessly. That's where XRP comes in. Again, XRP isn't competing with these networks. It's the neutral bridge asset that connects them all. Imagine a future future where every country has its own central bank digital currency. The digital dollar, digital euro, digital yen. None of those currencies talk to each other directly. So, what's the universal translator between them? A bridge asset that's globally liquid, decentralized, and instantaneous. Exactly what XRP was built to be. But here's something even more interesting. Ripple's leadership team has been dropping clues about this long-term vision for years. Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO, said multiple times that he sees XRP as the future internet of value, meaning the same way the internet connected information, Ripple is connecting value. And if that sounds abstract, think about this. Before the internet, information was siloed. Now it flows freely. Before Ripple, money was siloed. Soon it will flow freely too. That's the transformation happening right now. And while the price of XRP might not reflect that yet, history shows that markets always catch up to utility, especially when it becomes systemic. Just like how nobody cared about Amazon in the late 90s when it was selling books, nobody realized they were building the infrastructure for e-commerce itself. That's exactly what Ripple is doing. Not just payments, but the plumbing of the global financial system. And this is where the scale becomes mind-blowing. Global payments alone are worth over $156 trillion annually. Ripple's on-demand liquidity ODL product allows banks and institutions to tap into XRP to move money across borders instantly without pre-funding accounts. That's a big deal. Banks currently park trillions of dollars in accounts around the world just to make international payments work. ODL removes the need for that. Imagine unlocking even a fraction of those funds back into the economy. The ripple effect literally could be enormous. Now think about this. Ripple doesn't need every bank to use XRP. Even if just a small percentage of global payment flows move through XRP, the volume alone would be staggering. That's the quiet part most people underestimate. This doesn't need to become a global monopoly to create life-changing outcomes for holders. It just needs adoption in the right places. And that adoption is already starting. Countries like Singapore, the UAE, and Japan are pushing forward with clear crypto regulations. Ripple's been at the center of those conversations. They're not fighting regulators. They're helping shape the rules. They even joined forces with major financial institutions to push for responsible digital asset frameworks because they know that once the rules are clear, the big players will move in fast. Now, the timing of all this couldn't be more critical. We're entering a phase where governments are openly discussing digital currencies, where banks are testing blockchain infrastructure, and where institutional adoption is finally taking shape. And Ripple has been building for this moment for almost a decade. Even the lawsuit that dragged on for years, it ended up being one of the best things that could have happened for them. Why? Because it forced Ripple to be one of the most compliant, transparent, and battle-tested companies in crypto. They had to build their operations like a traditional financial firm. Now they're stronger for it. So when new regulations finally roll out, Ripple will already be ready. Most crypto companies will have to scramble to catch up. That's why institutional confidence in XRP keeps rising quietly in the background. And it's not just theory. There are pilot programs happening right now with central banks. For example, the Republic of Palau launched its national stablecoin with Ripple. Bhutan tested its CBDC on Ripple's platform, and countries in Africa and the Middle East are exploring Ripple tech for financial inclusion. These aren't experiments anymore. They're early signs of a global shift. When those dominoes start to fall, it won't just change Ripple. It'll redefine what digital money actually means. Because at the core of all this is a simple idea. Moving value should be as easy as moving information. You shouldn't have to wait days or pay huge fees to send money across the world. And that's why Ripple's mission resonates beyond just crypto traders. It's solving a real-world problem that impacts billions of people. Now, combine that mission with where the market is heading. The next phase of adoption isn't about hype or memes. It's about utility, speed, and trust. The companies that provide real-world value are going to lead the next bull cycle. And Ripple has positioned XRP as one of the very few digital assets with an actual use case backed by institutional-grade infrastructure. The thing most people miss is that utility adoption doesn't happen in public view. It happens in boardrooms, in regulatory offices, and in partnership meetings. By the time the public starts noticing, it's usually too late to catch the big wave. And right now, all the signals point to that moment approaching faster than people think. You have macro forces, inflation, debt, dollarization, all pushing the world toward faster, more efficient systems. You have technology, blockchain, AI, tokenization converging into one global infrastructure. And in the middle of all that sits Ripple with XRP ready to connect it all. That's why understanding this moment matters, because it's not about guessing where the next pump will come from. It's about seeing the inevitable evolution of global money before everyone else does. The world is shifting toward instant borderless digital value transfer. And when that shift completes, the assets that make it possible won't just be valuable, they'll be essential. When you really think about it, every major technology breakthrough follows the same pattern. At first, people ignore it, then they laugh at it, then they fight it, and finally, they join it. That's exactly what's happening right now with XRP. For years, people said it couldn't happen. They said banks would never touch crypto. They said governments would never use blockchain. And yet here we are, watching Ripple form direct partnerships with central banks, regulators, and some of the largest financial institutions in the world. What's fascinating is how it's all unfolding quietly. Ripple doesn't chase headlines. They build infrastructure. They've been playing the long game because they understand something most people don't. The next era of wealth isn't built in noise. It's built in silence. Let's look at the bigger picture. We're entering a financial world that's about to be completely restructured. Paper money is fading. Digital money is rising. And the institutions that control global payments, from remittances to settlements, are all being retold to work instantly 24/7 across borders. That's not something that happens overnight, but when it happens, it's irreversible. And what stands at the center of that transformation is interoperability, the ability for different currencies, banks, and systems to talk to each other. That's why Ripple has spent years building trust with regulators, earning licenses, and proving that XRP isn't just a speculative token, it's infrastructure technology. This is not financial advice. You can see the signs everywhere. Ripple now has licenses in major financial hubs like Singapore and Dubai. They've expanded into over 70 countries. They're working with institutions that process billions of dollars in daily flows. And that's before full-scale CBDC integration even begins. When that next phase starts, XRP's role becomes almost self-evident because every digital currency needs a bridge, a neutral, efficient, universally accepted asset that can settle value instantly between systems that otherwise wouldn't connect. And while everyone's focused on building their own local coins, the digital euro, the yuan, the digital pound, Ripple's been building the rails to connect all of them together. That's what makes XRP special. It's not just another token, it's a bridge between worlds. And when the market finally wakes up to that, it won't be a gradual move. It'll be a realization moment when value shifts from speculation to utility. And XRP stands at the center of global liquidity. Because here's the truth, liquidity is power. The more liquid an asset becomes, the more valuable it is. And XRP's entire purpose is to enable global liquidity. Think about this. When banks, corporations, and governments all begin to rely on a digital asset for settlement, they're not just using it, they're integrating it into their foundation. At that point, XRP stops being crypto and becomes part of the world's financial operating system. And that's why timing is everything right now. The window before global adoption becomes obvious is where the biggest opportunities live. It's the same phase that early internet investors saw before became mainstream. It's the phase right before mass adoption where everything feels quiet, but something massive is building under the surface. And here's something else to think about. When new financial systems go live, they don't just benefit banks and governments. They also create once-in-a-lifetime shifts in wealth for those who saw it coming early. That's the key difference between traders and visionaries. Traders chase price charts. Visionaries position themselves before the wave hits. XRP is still early in that curve. The infrastructure is being set, but the public recognition hasn't caught up. Once global money starts flowing through those pipes at scale, the value locked inside XRP could multiply beyond what most people imagine. And remember, it doesn't take every country, every bank, or every corridor to move the needle. Just a small percentage of global liquidity settling through XRP could represent trillions in volume. Even a fraction of that could create immense demand for the asset itself. This is what's called the network effect. The more connections Ripple builds, the more valuable the network becomes. Every new country, every new partnership, every new corridor compounds the utility of XRP. And that's what separates real long-term projects from short-term hype. Because once utility hits critical mass, it's game over. You can feel it in the market right now. The quiet before the next breakout cycle. Regulations are catching up. Utility coins are starting to shine. And institutional adoption is finally becoming reality. XRP isn't chasing trends. It's positioned to define the next era of global value transfer. So when you look at what Ripple's built, where the world is heading, and how fast tokenization is expanding, you start to realize something powerful. This isn't just about making payments faster. It's about creating a unified financial system for the digital age. And XRP is designed to be the bridge that holds it all together. That's why years from now, people will look back at this exact moment before the systems went live, before the headlines exploded, and realize it was one of the most asymmetric opportunities of this generation. Because once the world's value starts flowing through the XRP ledger at scale, it won't just be a crypto story anymore. It'll be the story of the new financial era, and the few who saw it coming early will be the ones who truly benefit from